In your video today, I want to help you remember some things about factoring. We've previously talked about how to factor using the greatest common factor. We've also talked about how to factor trinomials using my father drives red Mustang. But today I want to talk about combining those two things. So before I do that, I want to review with you how to do GCF by itself, then how to do my father drives red Mustang by itself, and then we're going to put the two together. So starting with greatest common factor. I can see the two terms 6x squared and 33x. If I can look at it and see what the greatest common factor is, that's wonderful. But if not, I'm going to want to go ahead and list those first two terms. So I'm going to write out 6x squared. I'm also going to write out 33x. And remember when we did this, we said we weren't going to worry so much about the negative sign. We'll get to that here in a minute. And then we wanted to think about what was in common between the two. To do that, we wanted to think about what multiplied to 6x squared. So to get 6, we would do 2 times 3, and then the x squared would be x and x. To do 33, we might think 3 and 11, which would be good, times x. And we'd go ahead and write that down. I could use my calculator like I have been in MIFDARM if 33 is not a number you're familiar with. And then I'm going to look for what they have in common. I'm going to circle those things which they share, in this case a 3 and an x, and I'm going to put that greatest common factor on the outside of my parentheses. It's kind of like reverse distribution. Then I'm going to put what's left over for each term in my parentheses. So I have 2x, and in the other one the 11. Since I originally had subtraction, I still have subtraction. Remember, you could always check this using y1 and y2 in your calculator, or just a quick glance. 3x times 2x is 6x squared, and 3 times 11 is 33. Again, that negative is taken care of there. So I can make sure that I can see that. Some of you can look at the numbers 6 and 33, and you can tell that the number that goes into both is 3, and that they also share an x. Then you'd ask yourself, 3 times what gives me 6? Well, that would be 2. 3 times what gives me 33? Well, that would be 11, and that makes that pretty quick. Now let's review my father drives red Mustang. We've done that a little bit more recently. Remember, to do this, I'm looking for a quadratic in standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c, and I want to start by labeling my a value, my b value, and my c value. If there are any signs, I want to take them with me. Then I'm going to do that first step, multiply a and c. So 1 times 20 would be 20. And then I would list those factors, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Use my calculator to help. I notice that my b value, 9, is positive. And so as I look through my factors, I know that I'm multiplying to a positive. So that's either positive times positive or negative times negative. I can quickly see that 4 plus 5 is 9. So those are the two I'm going to use. Once I find my factors, I'm going to divide by my a value, which is 2 in this case. Be very careful that you don't just use 1 every time. You need to pay attention to what a actually says. Then I can reduce when possible. In this case, I can reduce 4 over 2 to 2 over 1. The other one I cannot. Then I'm going to make my multiples. I'm going to write the x on the bottom, and I'm going to read from the bottom to the top. Reading from the bottom, x plus 2 is my first factor, and 2x plus 5 is my second factor. That one gets out of view just a little there for you, but again, that's 2x plus 5. So the little girl's asking, why not both? Why can I not put the two processes together? And the answer is that I can. If I look at that first GCF problem, I can't do MIFDARM because I only have a binomial and I don't have a z. If I look at MIFDARM and I say, why can't I do GCF? Because 2 does not go into 9 and 10 doesn't have an x in it. But in this one, there is both a GCF and a trinomial, which remains. So I want to start by looking at the GCF, and that's why we learn that process first, because when you do both things, you're always going to look for the GCF first. Some of you in your head already know a number that goes into 4 and 12 and 40, and others are not as sure. So I'm going to go ahead and list the prime factorization here. You can see that I've done 4 is 2 times x times x. 12 is 3 times 2 times 2 times x. And 40, I would think 4 times 10, but 4 is 2 times 2, and 10 is 2 times 5. I'm going to show you real quick how to do a factor tree to get the prime numbers, just in case that's still troublesome for you. So you can see all of those bottom numbers are the ones I'm going to use. I'm going to circle anything that's the same. That's going to be my greatest common factor. So I'm going to circle a group of 2 and then another group of 2. And those two groups, 2 times 2 would be 4. Hopefully you know that 4 goes into 4. It also goes into 12 and 40. Then I write what's left. So x squared minus 3x, plus, there was plus in between, and now minus at the end. 2 times 5 would be 10. You may be able to just look and check. If you took a 4 out, you may be able to say what's left over and get that same answer. Once I've done that process, I see a trinomial, which tells me that I can do MIFDARM. So I'm going to take the 4 and write it down, and then I'm going to do MIFDARM on the remaining process. So x squared plus 3x minus 10. My a is 1, my c is negative 10. So 1 times negative 10 is negative 10. My factors 1 and 10, 2 and 5. I know one column needs to be negative since my AC is negative. My B value is positive, which means I need more positive things in the end. So my larger column will stay positive, my smaller column will become negative. And then I can tell that negative 2 plus 5 is going to give me that 3 I was looking for. I'm going to divide by 1, which was my A value. There's no reducing, and so I can write my factors x minus 2 and x plus 5. And on my screen it looks like that got a little out of the picture, but again, if you're following along on your notes, you should be fine on that part. Now I have fully factored this problem using both processes. Today you're focused on getting good at both. If you understand this, you can go ahead and stop the video now and go on to your assignment once the substitute passes that out to you. Work diligently, work by yourself, and get it done. If you're still a little bit confused, I'm going to do one more example on the back. So you can go ahead and just ask for this video. Go on YouTube and search Mrs. Lawler Math, MRS Lawler Math, and then look for mixed factoring, and you'll be able to find this video. And if you do, you can watch this one more example that might be helpful to you. Again, I'm practicing that process of finding the GCF. You may be able to look at these numbers and already tell me what it is, particularly because you know that 3 is small and it goes into 6 and 30. So you may be able to say 3 comes out of each. And when it does that, 3 times what gives me 30? Well, 3 times 10. Or you might want to think about each term being divided by 3. So 30 divided by 3 would be 10x squared. 3 divided by 3 would be 1x. Or 3 times what gives me 3. And then 3 times what gives me 6? Well, that would be 2. So again, I've taken out that greatest common factor, just sped up that process a little bit. And now I have a trinomial left over, which is quadratic. So I'm going to multiply a and c. 10 times negative 2 is negative 20. 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. I'm looking for the one which adds up to be 1 because that's my b value. And when I multiply, one column needs to be negative because I multiply to a negative. 4 and 5 are 1 away. The negative goes on the 4, so that negative 4 plus 5 equals 1. Negative 4 times 5 equals negative 20. I'm dividing by my a value, which is 10. Remember, I leave that 3 out, that GCF, and now I'm reducing. So negative 4 over 10 reduces to negative 2 over 5. 5 over 10 reduces to 1 over 2. And I made a little mistake there and just had to go back and correct it. It happens to all of us, so don't be too scared to make mistakes. Then I'm going to write my x's on the bottom, and I'm going to read from the bottom to top. So 5x minus 2 and 2x plus 1. And again, don't forget you can always check these using y1 and y2 in your calculator. Be good for the substitute today. You're awesome. Work hard. Love you. See you soon. Bye.